Hello, hello. Welcome. Hope you're enjoying where you are at this particular point in time. And I want to welcome you again to the 17 Days of Quantum. We're now at day 10. And for those of you that are joining for the first time, this is a deeper look into what it is that we're about, what it is that we have to share. And it's a doorway into what makes the quantum movement what it is, how we, I suppose, approach a philosophy of life and how we encourage you to live your own. So these are some of the deeper aspects of what we're doing today. It is one that I'm most inspired by, but also most challenged by at times of sharing, because it comes with a deep level of opposition more often than not. And generally, a lot of people experience so much pain and loss and trauma around this one. And it's to do with healing. It can be a sensitive topic because, it can be surrounding death. It can be surrounding tragedy and a whole range of things that we don't understand, that we continue to keep being told are bad for us, terrible for us, and are going to have us lose our life at any particular point in time if we don't come into a particular state of care as prescribed by those outside of our own self. So healing. I want to suggest, and maybe look at your own life to begin with. When you're in a state of pain, are you looking to fix the pain? Are you looking to understand what's causing the pain? Because for many of us, the very nature of pain is an indication, very much like a light coming up on a dashboard to say that something needs attention. Now, the very nature is that when that light comes on, we don't get angry at that light, but we take action. We move forward in a way that serves us. But very much in our own life, when we have a problem that arises, we start to try and fix that problem. We don't understand what's causing it or what is required in order to address it. And most of our life, we live our life in fixing problems, the ones that we've created. And we continue to keep being in this loop that when we are in pain, we then become stimulated to address that pain. And then once we've completed and moved past that pain, we stop taking the actions that cause us to relieve ourselves, but then coming back to the same cycle again of pain at some stage in the near future to only address the same thing again. And it worked previously, so we do it again and we fall into this loop. And what actually happens is that we actually predicate and cause further pain, further trauma, and further disease in our life in order to go through the same process that we're familiar with. The very nature of health is to be able to get down to the cause of what exists and why it is that I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing at this particular moment. I can suggest to you from my observation, and remember, I don't have a certificate, I'm not a doctor, but I've observed what exists in other people when they apply certain practices. I find it quite interesting in the safety that we're led to believe as to why people can't share particular methodologies, particular understandings and insights and wisdoms that allow people to overcome diseases that have been so significantly destructive on our own humanity. But that's another question for another day. But to question that, to suggest that people can't handle information and discern for themselves is probably a greater disease. But let's look into the very nature of, within our own cells, all conditions exist from a point of disintegration, a point of disconnection within our own self. When we're disconnected with ourselves and we choose to separate from our own being, and I mean from an energetic state, the soul, whatever it is, the what that exists within us, and our own physical capacity to be able to direct that, to express through that. When those two parts of ourselves are delineated or are separated, we then encourage and welcome in particular situations, beliefs, ideals from other people that are ultimately toxic to our own space. When we're in a state of integration, we are working harmoniously as one, and our body naturally goes into a state of healing. We naturally allow ourselves to release and let go of, because we're not fighting against or trying to bring ourselves back into a state of harmony, a state of peace, a state of ease. We understand that we choose that disharmony. Because if we want to heal ourselves, healing is a byproduct of being connected, maintaining a state of calm and ease in our life. And for me, the very indicator of dis-ease is when we're not in a state of ease, when we're not in a state of calm. It's not about addressing what's causing that disease, that the person next to us, the food that we're eating. It's about recognizing how I get into a state of ease at this particular moment. It's about having a process and a procedure and a strategy that allows me to get into ease with the environment that exists about me. I've observed many people overcome significant conditions that they were not meant to or not supposed to by someone else's diagnosis. And the thing is, within our own self, when we become subjected to other people's beliefs, is because we have lost self-belief. And that self-belief is established within our own selves when we are able to communicate at a deep level, at a level of trust, where we can actually listen to ourselves and override any information that exists external to us. It doesn't mean that we ignore what anyone else has to say, but it means that when we listen, we can take that back to a place of our own discerning and decide what is the truth for us, whatever diagnosis we may choose to act upon and move forward in a way that serves us most deeply. Pain is simply an indication. Disease is an indication. It's how we respond to that is most important. We must understand and start from a particular point in our own life. When we start to consider that everything around us or anything around us exists to challenge us, to create disease, to poison us in any particular way, we are going to be subjected to defending our own position rather than understanding our capacity to overcome anything that exists external to us. There is no poison that can have an impact upon us when we are maintaining a pure state of our own integration. Now, this might confront a whole range of people and conditions and what they've been exposed to within themselves or within others. But what I'm suggesting here is about getting to a deeper state of your own awareness. Let's consider conditions that challenge us, maybe like cancer. Consider what happens when someone has cancer. I'd suggest it hasn't happened immediately. It hasn't happened out of the blue. Cancer is something that is occurring within us for a period of time before it is that we become present to its existence or diagnosis within us. Before that, we have had indications, like a child wanting to get our attention, asking politely, and then as we don't listen to them, they get a bit louder and they get a bit louder. Eventually they start pulling on our leg and eventually they have a tantrum until we stop, until we listen. And it's what's going on within our own selves when we're disconnected, when our truth is not being observed and heard from within our own self. It goes through a particular process in order to capture our attention. But consider what happens when we have something like a cancer or a dire terminal illness. We start to receive a significant amount of attention. We start to become present and receiving of other people's attention where maybe we have not been previously. We as individuals allow ourselves to be loved in ways that we haven't previously. Dire sickness brings a great requirement to our own self, which is our own attention. Our sickness is very much when we start to take on other people's energies and when we start to become beholden of other people's experiences, other people's pains in our own life before we become and put attention into our own. The very nature of our own state of integration is about bringing attention to ourselves and about sustaining a relationship of love. When we don't have that in our life, we start to seek answers outside of us. We start to take on things. We start to take on habits that are unfulfilling, that are destructive in our own life, from the foods that we eat, from the things that we partake, from the habits that we buy into. Our sicknesses are a condition of the condition that we maintain. These are not things that are floating around that are looking to destroy us. We are not susceptible to those things unless we sit in a state of disintegration. But conversely, it's a state of integration that allows us to be free, that allows us to be above and beyond sickness. It's to understand within our own life that when we are not engaging in our own truth, when we are not moving bravely and courageously towards a direction of our own understanding, We are going to experience challenges, sicknesses. We are not going to want to support ourselves in what we eat and how we eat and when we eat. We're not going to want to support ourselves with the people that we surround ourselves with. It's only when we start to engage in a greater level of our own truth, when we start to engage in a greater level of our own love, that we want to expose and express ourselves to people around us enthusiastically, and we want to receive love. The very sustenance that exists within us is our ability to not only receive attention from ourselves, but be able to receive attention from others. It's when we are at peace with ourselves. When we are at shame and we are holding guilt, we don't want to expose ourselves to others. We separate ourselves from others. The very notion of our own ability to be able to accept greater wisdoms, greater insights in how we can live free from any particular condition or disease is in our ability to be able to receive that information and let go of the indoctrination that we've been taking on for such a long period of time, is to put ourselves into our own authority, is to recognize that the only answers that we seek are the ones that we have within us. And it's our ability to maintain our attention upon our own self for long enough until we're inspired to move forward. Not until we get a satisfactory answer, not until we become happy with a general response, but until we become absolutely embodied and inspired to move forward in a direction which causes us to find our own truth and to live our truth. Look into your own life. Ask yourself, if you were to accept that everything exists around you to support you, and when I say support you, it might mean that you might need to traverse and move through some darkness in your own life, but ultimately, if we stick around for long enough and we move through that, we find a great amount of support and uplifting and elevation in our own life. It comes back to our own navigation of that. But look into your life. Do you believe that things around you exist to support you, or do you believe that they exist to harm you? Are you focused upon the fear of death, or are you in the process of living your life? For me, I don't believe in the ideal of healers. I don't believe in the interruption of doctors. There are certain processes which doctors are exceptional for. Brilliant when it comes to surgery, but there's a greater interruption that comes through extensive medication, which causes most of the diseases that we're experiencing at the moment. Not through the pharmaceuticals, but through our condition to get to that particular point where we become so absent with ourselves that we believe that that's a solution. We can choose to engage in our own truth, or we can choose to engage in others. But the thing is, either way, we're taking responsibility for whatever truth we choose to engage in, and our ignorance to the condition of that responsibility is not an excuse. Our ability to heal exists in our ability to give attention to ourselves and maintain it for a significant period of time until we can maintain our own integration. The very nature of what I have observed and seen is in our inability to let go. Letting go requires us to move into a place of our own choosing. Those of you that want to find true health, those that want to find true wealth within, sit with yourself, take some time, identify what it is within you that you want to experience, not outside of you, what it is within you that you want to experience. Because as soon as you start to experience that within you and recognize that it's already there, but you allow that to be a priority and expression through you, you'll start to see that existing around you. Those things that you want, that you'd like to experience, they will become a part of your life. Don't aspire to them, aspire to what it is that you want to experience within. There's many topics and many depths that we can look into with healing, but the main thing that I'd be looking at is avoid the pain and relief cycle. Avoid looking for solutions to get rid of pain in order to find pain again. Look to what the cause is. What is it at the root that is creating this situation? And to me, the real depth of responsibility we have is to be able to intuitively direct and navigate ourselves to an understanding and a communication to specifically, not get a general feeling of what it could be, not get a sense of what it could be, but I mean in deep, articulate communication within your own self to understand the specifics and then understand how to move beyond that and move through it. Illness is experienced when we maintain ourselves in a state of toxic release, and that is happening all the time. When we interrupt that, we stay in it. When we feel a little bit sick and we start to become concerned in our own ignorance that something is wrong, rather than understanding that in the nature of eating, there are certain times where we need to release, where we need to let go. When we don't understand that, we interrupt it and we continue to maintain that toxic release, and we sit in a state of consistent and perpetual illness and sickness. We become susceptible to diseases, stories of viruses. But this is all for our own choosing. It's what we choose to believe in or what we do not choose to believe in. Create your own environment, move beyond the pain and relief cycle. And if you want to understand more, be with us next Tuesday when we go into a webinar to explain a little bit deeper on how it is that you can start to live and embody that in your own life. I hope this has been of benefit to you. Thank you very much for those of you that were here and listening. It's gone a little bit longer than I expected. But any questions that anyone has in regards to this, by all means, note them down, ask them in here, have them ready next week. But we look forward to sharing more with you. And until we meet again on the inside, enjoy you. Doesn't want to end.